Many new enterprises need to convince prospective business investors about the soundness and potentials of their business. They need to convey the capabilities and competencies of their owners and managers, and this is where a good business plan comes in. A business plan serves many masters. First, it serves the entrepreneur who must set a navigational course. Second, it serves the investors and cautious financiers. Third, it serves the managers and staff of the organization so that they will know the strategies and programs of the enterprise. There is no prescribed format for a business plan. The important thing to remember is that it is a communication tool. First and foremost, the business plan must have a specific audience in mind. What important questions does this audience want answered? Second, the business plan must sell the proponent and the business proposition to this audience. Here is a sample format of a business plan. First, the business plan must present the business concept and the business model. It must show the business goals, vision, mission, objectives, and performance targets. Second, the business plan must contain a good executive summary. Third, the business plan must highlight the business proponents, the organizers and their capabilities and contributions. Fourth, the business plan must talk about the target customer and the main value proposition to that customer. Fifth, the business plan must talk about the market and the justification for the market based on industry dynamics and the macro-environmental factors affecting the opportunities and threats in the market. The size, potential, and realistic share of the market must be calculated. 6. The business plan must then discuss the products and the services of the company. 7. The business plan must then articulate the enterprise strategy and the enterprise delivery system and its business competitiveness. 8. The business plan must provide the financial forecast and expected returns, risks, and contingencies. 9. The business plan must talk about the environmental and regulatory compliance of the enterprise. And finally, 10. The business plan must talk about the capital structure and the financial offerings, returns and benefits to investors, financiers, and business partners. Let us discuss the different parts of the business plan. Let's begin with the first part. It's composed of the business concept and business model. The second is the business goals, composed of the vision, mission, objectives, key result areas, and performance indicators. And finally, the business offering and its justification. A business concept contains the essence of the enterprise in a concise but powerful manner. It stresses the value of the product offering to the target customer who will most likely buy it. The product concept is then translated into a business model. A business model is a formula on how the enterprise exactly plans to make money out of the business. There are 4 areas of money making which the business model must address. First, how will the business raise revenues, and what critical factors will cause the revenues to materialize? Second, what will be the cost of the enterprise products and other costs of doing business? How will this cost be managed to ensure comfortable profits? What critical factors will drive the cost, and how can these factors be contained? Third, what will be the major investments of the enterprise, and why will these investments give the enterprise a competitive edge? Fourth, how will the enterprise finance the investments, and how will the enterprise fund its growth? The business goals show the future and long-term prospects of the enterprise. It is composed of the vision, mission, objectives, key result areas, and performance indicators of the enterprise. To illustrate, let us examine the vision of Double Happiness. Double Happiness is an eatery in a bus terminal. It has 3 outlets located at bus terminals in Central Luzon. The vision of Double Happiness is to establish a commanding presence and market leadership as a food chain servicing major bus terminals in Central Luzon within the next 5 years. The business goals are communicated by articulating the basic purpose of setting up the enterprise in a mission statement. Needless to say, all business enterprises are established for the purpose of making money for its investors. For Double Happiness, its mission statement is to provide quality food and passenger convenience services that would generate sufficient profits for the stockholders and improve the lives of its employees. The vision and mission statements must then be translated into measurable end results, more popularly called objectives. Objectives must be more specific than the mission and vision statements. They should be measurable, achievable, and time-bound. For Double Happiness, these were their stated objectives. Number 1, to establish a strong market presence in Central Luzon. Number 2, to earn good financial returns for its owners. Number 3, to delight customers with high-quality food and services. And number 4, to make Double Happiness a happy and rewarding place to work in. The objectives should then be translated into Key Result Areas or KRAs. KRAs are the qualitative manifestations of the objectives. In the case of Double Happiness, the key result areas for each of the objectives are as follows. In turn, the key result areas must be rendered into quantified performance measurements, otherwise called as performance indicators. These performance indicators, or PI, serve as the aspirational scorecard of the enterprise managers and the motivational results of the investors. However, the PIs must actually be credible to the business audience in mind. In the case of double happiness, the performance indicators for each of the key result areas are as follows. Once the business plan audience is convinced about the attractiveness of the performance indicators, then they must be convinced about how good the business offering is to the different parties concerned. The business offering must then be justified according to its fairness and to its feasibility. For the common stock investors and business partners, they'll be taking more risks, but in exchange, they'll harvest much of the returns if these returns do materialize. For the financiers, they will realize a fixed or floating interest yield and will get their money back over a specified period of time. The preferred stockholders will get a higher dividend yield than the interest yields of financiers, but they will also bear more risks. There might not be any dividend payment during bad years. The second part of the business plan is the executive summary. The executive summary contains everything that is relevant and important to the business audience. It is a synthesis of the entire plan. The executive summary must contain the major argumentations of the business proponent on why the business will work and succeed. It should provide the business plan audience all the arguments on why they should participate in the business venture. The executive summary should then introduce and extol the virtues of 1. The business proponents and their partners. 2. The enterprise organization and its capabilities. 3. The technology providers and their expertise and experience. And 4. The suppliers and all the major service providers. Next, the executive summary should describe the products and or services of the enterprise, their features and attributes, and why they are the right ones to deliver to the customers. The executive summary should then proceed to discuss and justify the enterprise strategy and enterprise delivery system. The enterprise strategy builds and develops the game plan for attaining competitiveness. The enterprise delivery system is the entire process of converting inputs or resources into outputs and these outputs into outcomes. The executive summary should then render all the major institutional market, operations, and organizational strategies previously cited into financial strategies and forecasts. Investment requirements should be presented along with the summaries of the projected income statements, balance sheets, cash flows, funds flow, and their analysis and conclusions. Yields and returns, along with the risk and contingency measures, should round up this section. The executive summary should contain a section on the environmental and regulatory compliance of the proposed business, as well as the more proactive programs to become a more responsible corporate citizen. Finally, the executive summary should present the capital structure of the proposed business and show how the structure will respond to the investment programs and financial forecasts of the enterprise. The third part of the business plan is the business proponent or stakeholders. There are 4 types of stakeholders. The first one are the resource mobilizers and financial backers. The second one are the technology providers and applicators. The third one represents the governance and top management structure. And the fourth is the operating team and support team. If the business plan is a resource provider, then this reader would want to know who else are on board to share the burden of raising money to see the whole thing through. If the business plan reader is a technology provider, they would want to know if there will be sufficient funds to pay for the technology. If the business plan reader is the governance and top management team, then they would want to know what strategies and performance indicators are being proposed. If the business plan reader is the implementing, operating, and support teams, they would want to know what programs, activities, tasks, or resources will be in place. The fourth part of the business plan is the target customers and the main value proposition. The business proponent must be very precise about the target audience or target customer. This target customer must be of sufficient size, sufficient paying capacity, and have sufficient interest to purchase the products being offered by the enterprise. The main value proposition is the unique selling proposition of the enterprise. Knowing where the target customers are exactly concentrated, the business plan should then pinpoint what the customers buy, how they buy, when they buy, where they buy, and what convinces them to buy. This information should then be used to justify the exact locations and marketing channels to be employed by the enterprise. The fifth part of the business plan is the market demand and supply, the industry dynamics, and the macro environmental forces affecting the business of the enterprise. It is normal for enterprises to actually expand their product offerings to include other segments of a bigger market. The business proponent should examine all of the opportunities in this bigger market and to determine what exactly influences this bigger market. The business plan should estimate the total market supply and demand for the product offerings of the enterprise. The business plan should then determine what are the major critical factors that influence this market demand and supply. Once these critical factors or variables are determined, then the business plan should forecast the future demand and supply. If these critical factors are expected to remain the same, then most likely the future forecast will follow the past trends. If not, then the future estimate of demand and supply should be revised according to new variables influencing that demand and supply. The market analysis and forecasting exercise should lead to a quantification of the current and prospective size of the market. Both the current and potential consumption should then be dissected. The business plan should then discuss the relevant industry dynamics. Who are the competing enterprises, and what are their comparative advantages and disadvantages? What business models and strategies are they employing? Who are the suppliers in industry, and what are their capabilities and bargaining power? What are the channels of distribution being used by the industry? How effective are these channels? Both the industry players and the market are affected by the macro environment, which includes the social, political, economic, ecological, and technological forces. The business plan should discuss the major trends and changing patterns in the microenvironment, which would have significant impacts on the relevant industry and the behavior of consumers. The sixth part of the business plan is the product offerings. It should contain a description, evolution, and justification of the product offerings. The products must be described by highlighting the features and attributes that would most appeal to the target customers. The business plan should also prove that the products would be accepted and carried by the distribution channels. The business plan should expound on the enterprise strategy by mapping the competitive landscape and by situating the enterprise and its competitors as to their strategies and chosen positionings. The business plan should then show how the Enterprise Delivery System, or EDS, will enable the business to implement the enterprise strategy. The EDS involves the harnessing of human, money, and physical resources from well-selected sources. These resources become the inputs, or money, men, machines, materials, methods, and management, which the operations unit within the EDS, that is the manufacturing or service delivery personnel, will convert or transform into outputs. The outputs will then be delivered to the customers to the marketing unit of the EDS. The products of the enterprise are positioned to meet the requirements of the selected market segments by choosing the right packaging, pricing, promotion, people for selling and distribution, and places or locations where the targeted customers can best be found. The operations and marketing units are supported by the finance, administration, and human resource management units, which oversee the flow of money, the procurement and maintenance of machinery and materials, and ensure the proper deployment and development of people. The EDS serves as the enabler of the enterprise strategy. The business plan must demonstrate how the EDS and the enterprise strategy tandem lead to the attainment of the desired enterprise outcomes. These business outcomes should include reasonably, high customer satisfaction levels, high sales volume, market share, market reach, high financial returns, and high people performance, productivity, and morale levels. The eighth part of the business plan is the financial forecast, including the financial return, the financial risks, and the financial contingencies. The business plan must translate everything that we have discussed so far into financial forecasts and outcomes. From the financial forecast, the business plan should then calculate the expected returns from the business. The important return calculations are the following: expected return on sales, expected return on assets or investments, and expected return on stockholders' equity. The business plan should also calculate the long-term returns using the time value of money. This means estimating the internal rate of return and the expected net present value. The business plan should then evaluate both the business risk and the financial risk involved. The ninth part of the business plan is composed of the environmental and regulatory compliance. The business plan must articulate the laws, rules, and regulations governing the business and the industry which the enterprise is in. The business plan should ascertain that all the necessary permits, licenses, and authority to use proprietary intellectual capital have either been secured or would definitely be secured. The business plan should also assure the reader that all the necessary local government ordinances, barangay edicts, will be followed by the enterprise. The 10th part of the business plan are the capital structure and financial offerings of the enterprise, including the investors, the financiers, and the partners. Finally, the business plan must appeal to its target audience. It must highlight for them the main features of the business plan that they're looking for. To recap, we have just discussed the business plan. We have discussed how a business plan must address a main target audience. We have discussed the 10 different parts of the business plan and how to put them together. Finally, we suggested that the business plan repeats the major arguments that would most appeal to the main target audience.